Woke, woke. There are so many things going on around. You must take heed. It's been written and prophesied about, so you must believe. Not everything that glitters is gold. Pay attention as it's been told. Join us every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with Brother Yusuf as he tackles and breaks down current events, current news, and politics, and the Islamic Ummah. Please join us, streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnahfollowers.
Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Real Talk Show with Brother Yusuf Zucovsky. And this is a series that I don't want any of you to miss, especially my new shahadas. Because so many Muslims today, they come to us, Daya, complaining about how weak they are in their faith. Oh, why is Allah turning his back on us as a nation and all of this? Because they don't understand that Allah hasn't turned his back on us. We've turned our backs on him. And Allah tells us in the Quran, whenever we deviate away from the traditional Islam, and the traditional Islam is what the Prophet Muhammad came with. Whenever we deviate away from that, there will be repercussions. And Allah is just. What's happening to us as a ummah, we brought it on ourselves. And it's really sad that a lot of us don't know what's going on in the world. They don't know how we as a nation are responding to the platforms and the issues that the rest of the world is bringing forth. So you want to try to make this class every Friday, because we have to be educated. The Prophet Muhammad said, don't be a narrow-minded person. Allah hates narrow-mindedness. We have to be able to see the big picture. We have to be able to see and know what's going on and how it's impacting us and how we're reacting as a nation. So please, guys, join this class. Share these streams. Good job, brother. Yes, he said, this is your favorite, one of your favorites. Mine too. Okay, so Brother Yusuf Zucovsky is here. I'm going to sit back and turn this over to him. And Brother Yusuf, you can go ahead and get started.
Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Kareem, everyone. We begin the journey, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Sister Layla's already did a presentation. Everybody has all week long, and we're not going to spend too much telling you guys things you already heard, you already know. I will give a little bit of a different. We're going to show how Ramadan is now being turned completely into something else. We'll close with that today. I'll share my own personal experiences, how I realized this. From the first year, practically, I was a Muslim. From my first Ramadan, I was already getting induced into very deviant behaviors by Muslims who didn't know any better, who had succumbed to all of this repackaging, if you will. They turned something about discipline, love of Allah, service, and everything like that into gluttony. We're going to close with that. But we got a loaded show today, touching on a little bit of immigration news. Going back to last week, I promised some quotes. I talked about some quotes from some Zionists, and we kind of tied everything in over the last month. You're going to see the kind of culmination of that today, where we are going to really, a lot of this stuff is all going to simultaneously make sense. We got some Donald Trump news we're going to be looking at, some news from the Republican Party. Andrew Tate was back in the news. We'll briefly speak on some issues relating to him and how all of a sudden he's not even being really referred to as a Muslim anymore. Like I said all along, he never was one, and how he's now being weaponized against the Christian community. We're going to be looking at some other stuff as we get there. You will see. So loaded show tonight. So first things first, this past weekend, Germany had an election. This goes with the theme of immigration that we were talking about. Poll after poll that you see, Germany actually was number one when it came to Europe in terms of saying there's entirely too much immigration. It was Angela Merkel who opened the floodgates and started all of this stuff back in 2015. There was already immigrants before, but at that point, the asylum scam ran wild. And the German people are watching their whole entire neighborhoods change. Their culture is changing, tensions everywhere. You have all kinds of just clashes between people, between races, all what the masters want. So he found that they had this election, and Mr. Frederick Merz, he took the title, so to speak. He is now the new prime minister. And again, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Because see, in America at least, our politicians, they pretend. They go on the campaign trail. They spend tons of money on all their ads and all these things showing, I'll tackle this. When I get in there, don't worry, it's going to be fixed. And then, of course, they don't do it. But at least they sell it to you that they're going to do something. So it gets that hopium up. People go out, they mobilize, they knock on doors, they do social media posts and advocating for their favorite savior. The cycle goes on every 4 years. We've already explained that in the past. But in Europe, it's a little bit different. They don't even tell you they're going to do anything. And they still get elected again, despite the fact that the public sentiment was 81%, saying there's too much immigration. You've got to stop this. We're losing our identity. And now here they go, putting someone in who's going to continue the status quo. I mean, needless to say, these elections, I question their integrity. As Joseph Stalin famously said, he didn't care about who votes. He cared who counted the votes, paraphrasing, but something along those lines. So last week, a sister had asked me, about basically why this intentional sabotage that we're seeing throughout the West with immigration. And I paraphrased some sayings, some things that I talked about related to the Zionist influence on this. And as always, anytime I say something here, if I don't have it, if you ask me a question, I know the information, but I want to make sure it's 100% factual. The following week, I will go grab the quotes and we're going to quote them word for word. And then we're going to compare what they say in the quote to what's actually going on. So here's a big breaker, and I guarantee you are not going to hear this anywhere else. You are not going to see one single imam in a masjid talking about this. You're not going to see one social media influencer talking about this. Either they're part of it or they are scared to actually say the truth. So let's take a look at some quotes, and then let's compare these quotes to what we all have undoubtedly witnessed in reality. Our first quote comes from Rabbi Anaran Naviv. He stated this to the World Jewish Congress. The homogeneity of European nations is fundamentally against the interests of the Jewish people. We are at a critical point in history. The West is becoming more and more racially diverse, and soon the white race will be forced into submission. Sounds very friendly, this gentleman here. The future of the West is an ethnically diverse melting pot where the evil divisions of race and white supremacy no longer reign. No one wants to see racial supremacy of any group of people. So he's saying something there that doesn't sound too bad. But this is all thanks to the power of our social movements, in plural, and institutions. We're going to look at those a little bit later. The great change, key part coming up here, will be catalyzed, a catalyst to stir the reaction, to get the reaction, the explosion going, will be, and I quote, Muslim settlement. From the land of Israel, Jews will forever be a light upon the new single racial world as guaranteed by God, close quote. Couple of interesting things there. He's declaring the destruction, the intent, the motive. We haven't gotten fully to why here. We're going to get to that in the next quote. Sometimes you have to piece 2 or 3 of these guys together and you get the full picture. But he said the key thing there. They were going to use Muslim immigration. This is back 30 years ago. They were stating this long before what we see now. So it's starting to come together. Why? They mentioned catalyst, powder keg, eruption, clash of cultures, forcing the white race into submission, using the Muslims to do it. But the goal becomes even more clear when we hear Mr. Rabbi Rabinovich. Obviously, with the last name, he is an Eastern European Ashkenazi Jew. He stated this in 1952. So this was also on the CIA's website as a declassified document. So they were aware of this, obviously. He said, we will openly reveal our identity with the races of Asia and Africa. So what does he mean by this? They're going to openly reveal. We're going to get to that here in a second. I can state with assurance that the last generation of white children is now being born. So they had a plan here, but it took a little bit longer, obviously, than they wanted. We're going to get into all this stuff in a minute of how they tried to achieve this. Our control commissions, again, plural, will, in the interest of peace and wiping out interracial tensions, forbid the whites to mate with the whites. The white woman must cohabit with members of the dark races, the white man with the dark women. The white race will disappear from mixing with the dark races, and this will mean an end of the white man. And our most dangerous enemy will only become a memory. We shall embark on an era of 10,000 years of peace. Sounds great, right? Here comes the great part. The Pax Judaica and our race will rule undisputed over the world. Our superior intellect will easily allow us to retain mastery and put over the world of the darker peoples. So right here, if you're white, Caucasian, European American, what have you, obviously you should be offended and take concern by this statement. If you're someone from Asia, Middle East, Africa, you also should be offended, because he's basically saying here that you are too stupid to be a threat to them. Once they get rid of the white European person or American, they're going to have no opposition. They are going to rule, and they call this 10,000 years of peace as they control the Goyim from Israel. Said it in the first statement there as well. So now you have the motive. It all makes sense now, doesn't it? When you see what is going on. They talked about the monoracial world. Now Japan is opening up and being flooded now with immigrants as well. You've seen this in the West and Europe. This is their plan. They want to destroy the cultures. They want to replace it with a no identity, no tie to the land, corporatized cultures we talked about before. They want to rid the world of Europeans because they simply believe that the darker skinned races of the world simply are not smart enough to compete with them. And if you look to different rabbinical literature, you can see how they believe they should rule. Because he says here, it's going to be 10,000 years of peace. The Goyim are cattle. That's where the word comes from. It means they are going to sit on a slave plantation globally. You hear it right there from the horse's mouth. And like I said, anyone who listens to this statement and does not get offended, and the alarm in the brain does not go off, and you match that to reality, you can see basically all kinds of people coming out saying, oh, well, no, that's just a few guys, but if you dive in and you do your research, as they mention, institutions, plural, organizations, you can see basically every single one of them, without fail, is ran, administered, founded, and created by one of those people. That's too many coincidences. That is not by chance. So you can also look at the propaganda that you see in the mainstream media. You see all these adverts now, magazines, music, whatever it may be, where you always see the image of the black male with the white, female. You see this constantly. Everyone, I know you've seen it. It is everywhere. Now, is there something wrong with that? Absolutely not. I did not marry or have children with a white woman. There's nothing wrong with seeking love. Of course, we don't have this. But when you're trying to do it for a, evil, type of purpose, or as you see as evil, trying to manipulate and guide people to something that you feel is to their detriment. Not saying that it is, but this again is why you see all of those adverts and all these things pushing this very, very hard. You see now in the United States, as an example, huge amounts of black women are unmarried. They don't have a husband. You see now white men, huge single. I think last I saw was over 60% of white men in the United States do not have a girlfriend or a partner. We're not advocating, obviously, for the latter there, but we're seeing a trend going in the direction like this. So the next phase of this, of course, is you have a goal, you have a motive. How are you going to implement this? Well, what we see is, of course, back in the 60s and 70s, they started pushing the narrative in the West that there simply was too many people in the world. That was the first step. Oh, there's just too many people. The climate. They told us that Miami was going to be underwater by 2010. They told us the entire East Coast of the United States was going to be completely submerged. We got pictures of the lighthouses. The water hasn't raised a quarter of an inch. It was all a hoax, but people bought into it. While at the same time they were doing that, they simultaneously were coming at with women's liberation, driving a wedge between the traditional family, advocating single women, heralding single women in music and television. We've all seen and heard the songs. We've all seen the broadcasts and the presentations. The birth rate subsequently plummeted. They just went straight down. I mean, we are looking now at extinction level birth rates throughout the Western world. And this isn't just the European population, it's even some of the second and third generation immigrants who've been and adopted this lifestyle over a period of time. Japan, Korea are some of the worst. We're talking about birth rates at 1.2, 1.3 replacement per woman. They're not even replacing themselves. So the initial thing was stop having children. It's good for the planet. Then we started seeing toward the 80s and 90s, everything changed. It started being, well, Goyim, you don't have enough children. So guess what? You have to open up to unlimited amounts of immigration now to replace yourself. So they gave you the bait, they set the trap, people fell right into it. So then the next step they did was you have to incentivize this. One of the things these people are the best at doing is making it in your own, what you feel is your own best interest to sow the seeds of your own destruction. They dangle your desires and your ambitions and they turn them and use them against you. So they incentivize this against greedy members of the population to serve and actually work for their own destruction. We see this, what's going on now with the hotel owners. These hotel owners I talked about a couple weeks ago, $700 per night they were getting from the government to house the illegals in New York. You see this all over Europe. These hotel owners were never full during non-travel seasons. Now they're fully full. They're wanting to keep the borders open. These people are making millions. In turn, they will use those millions to lobby for their politicians to keep the borders open. They're creating the Zionists a functioning system that once you get it going, you wind it up, it never stops unwinding. It just goes on its own. You see the colleges have now been incentivized to do this because, of course, they get out-of-state tuition. So the colleges want to have unlimited open borders because it keeps a flood of students so they can charge more money. You know, students from particularly Saudi Arabia, India, all the Gulf countries, from China. These are countries that have a lot of money. They're wealthy. Their wealthy people control all the wealth. They're flooding their people into our universities. The construction industry, nonstop supply of cheap labor. They've been a heavy lobby for this. Again, sowing the seeds of destruction, the agricultural industry. We've seen Christian charity organizations ran by the Catholic Church also taking money from the government. It was recently revealed. Our tax dollars going to these charities to help bring in the illegals under the guise that they're going to convert them to Christianity. That's what they sell to their people. They obviously know that it's not going to be the case. You see property owners. We've talked about that. The American people in Europe now, housing through the roof. People are paying $1,800, $2,000 a month in rent. Where when I was growing up, if you paid $2,000 a month in rent, you lived in a multi-floor semi-mansion. You know, now you get a small house, it's basically a square with 4 rooms. And that's what you're getting for $2,000 a month in rent because the population is so up. And these people have been able to sell us that, oh, housing prices up is a good thing. A good thing for who? The average American? Absolutely not. It's a good thing for those who own the properties, for the fat cats, you know, if you will. It's not benefiting us at all. It's good for the food manufacturers and grocery stores. More people, you raise the prices. There's more demand. Then you supply the supply and demand laws in place there. With all of this there, all these different lobbies get the border system to be what it is, to ignore the law, to continue to allow people to pour in here. Over in Europe, it's the guys on the boats and all these other things. And then that goes into the segue to our next aspect of this scam, which is the political and refugee status and asylum. These asylum rules were created for times of war. If you were someone who was legitimately fleeing war, I know if I was fleeing war and I was too old to fight, didn't find a stake in it, I would try to be the first place I go. You know, I'm happy you took me in. Thank you. I would owe my life to those people. That's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing people claiming to be refugees flooding in 8, 9, 10 safe countries. I want to go to England. I want to go to Germany. Why? Best benefits, best welfare. Most of them, when you find out, people from Egypt, from Algeria, from Morocco, there's no conflict. There's no war in these countries, but yet they're over there applying for asylum. You even see this getting to the point of insanity where they will use homosexuality as a cause for asylum. They will claim that they are seeking asylum due to their homosexuality when none of them obviously are homosexual. You know, you're seeing tons of people coming looking for the best benefits, ultimately bankrupting and causing a powder keg within these countries that's ready to explode. Now, if you were part of the opposition of this, they have their best weapon, which is fortunately losing its value in the modern world, and that's to call you a racist. Oh, you're just a racist. You're just this. You're just that. I don't think anyone wants to pay 2,000 rent. I don't think it's racist to want to have safe, quality neighborhoods. I don't think it's racist to want to know who's living in your country. I don't think it's racist to not want to put 85% men, which is what most of these people, as we've talked about before, 85% of them are men. I don't think any community benefits from 85% men. Just imagine the dynamics there. What is going to happen to that community? But this is, again, the word they're going to throw out there. And they'll say, oh, well, you're always been a nation of immigrants. They used to say that to America, and it was true, partially. But now they're saying it for places like Germany and England, which have never been home to immigrants. They're now telling, oh, you're a nation of immigrants, you know, as well. And they make it seem like it's a God-given right for any person on this earth to pick where they want to live, all going to this Zionist agenda, giving them welfare, bankrupting the state, causing division, and so on. Like me, as an example, I have ancestral home in Ireland, and I have ancestral homes in Eastern Europe. Could I immigrate to those countries as an American if I wanted to with a college degree and job skills? The answer is absolutely not. They would not take me. But yet, if it's someone from another country that doesn't happen to be within this zone, of course, they will more than allow you to come in when you don't even speak the language, you don't have an education, you don't have any job skills, and you're 85% men of military fighting age. Going back again to the quote earlier, they would use these groups as a catalyst to destroy these countries. So again, and we as a people here need to ask ourselves, you know, what are we receiving from this? We know now why it's happening. We know what the agenda is. Why are we dealing with this? Why? No one ever had a choice, you know, in this matter. You know, do we want the high food prices, the lower quality of life? I mean, I've been to a lot of these countries, and I guarantee you the same treatments that we give to the people here are not given to us when we go there. Doesn't matter what your color is. If you're American, you go to any of these countries, you're never going to get citizenship. You sure aren't going to get free welfare and a free apartment or a free hotel room. And then do they come in, like I said, I would personally love the nation that took me in. Absolutely not with these people. They come in, a lot of them, with open hostility and anger toward the native population. They bring their same tribalism and same actual real racism into these countries when they arrive. And we have to realize if we would just simply get rid of this problem, almost all of our economic problems would be solved overnight. I mean, you'd watch your rent plummet, you watch your egg prices, your food prices, your utility prices, everything would go down. It would be a drastic change in the society, and it opens up a lot of questions again of how can we fix this, what's going on. Of course, this issue has been, you know, used against us, and no one in the Muslim community will dare talk about it. I mean, I've met a lot of these people when I would go to the masjid. Most of them don't speak English. A lot of them have been here for 5 to 10 years. They're not making any attempt to be part of America at all, which is detrimental to the community. They're enclaves, basically, inside of this society. You will see in the masjid here locally a Syrian group, Egyptian group, Moroccan groups, none of them co-mixing. It's all tribalism, and we're just watching the fracturing that Zionist was hoping for when he talked in his speech. I mean, when I worked in manufacturing a few years ago, I was just amazed because we were spending so much of our time with racial politics. It was just disgusting that we're there to earn our living, make a product, and get everybody home safe and happily. And I'm constantly having to fight with all these different tribalism that was going on the floor. I mean, you had black and white in one camp, and you had your Latinos in another. And there was just constant tension throughout the facility. And we're having to manage all of this and having groups come together and talk and trying to get everybody to get along. But what it usually was that this immigrant group didn't want to be part of anything American at all. They didn't want to learn the language. They didn't want to improve the English. They didn't want to have dinner or lunch with anyone. They sat at their own table. And it really caused problems. When one of them was in a position of power, it was completely in favor of that group only. And they would come to me with grievances, both the black employees and the white employees. It was terrible. And that's going to be the future of this country, as well as Europe, as well as Japan, if nothing is changed. When I was growing up, we had a circle of friends. And it's quite ironic. My best friend was Cuban, second generation immigrant. My second best friend was a Filipino gentleman, second generation immigrant. We all have the same culture exactly. No one thought about racial differences amongst us. Everybody viewed themselves as American. We got along. None of this stuff happened, because back then we were bringing the best and the brightest in. We were bringing people in like their parents that had job skills. They came because they loved the country. They wanted to serve the country and be better, in the country. They wanted their children to have a better life than them. And they welcomed mixing in with the people, but you're just simply not seeing that now. It's really just a dramatic change. And as Muslims, obviously, we are against nationality. We are against this nationalism. But when I was overseas, I saw it over there. It was just, it was everything in some of those countries. Your tribe first, your nation second, and you saw again the same fracturing. It was encouraged from the top levels of the governments over there, just like it's being encouraged over here. And when you have that kind of division with people where you don't have anything in common with them, nothing that you can fall back on, you are easy to rule and control, going again to the Zionist quote from Rabbi Rabinovich. So we move on, to something else that was on my mind here this week is that, anyone who's listened to me now for a few months, I do focus most of my time on the Democrats. We are going to turn now that we have a Republican in power. I did a talk during the election season last year saying the Muslim response to the vote was to, just simply stay home, that we didn't have a choice. Even the third party candidates were promoting deviancy. None of these candidates aligned with the law. And now that we have, of course, Trump in, we're going to be focusing a lot on him, where before it was on Biden because that was the puppet and that was the regime and kind of the tempo, if you will, of America, where the country was going. So, of course, with liberalism, you have your LGBTQ, you have your tribalism, the illegal immigration, the anti-white hate I talked about. But now let's see what the Republican saviors, they ran against these things. They ran as being traditional American values and returning as to make America great. And the vast majority of these people, when they voted for Trump, it was two simple reasons. Reason number one was immigration. Reason number two was the economy. Trump somehow magically, through sorcery of the media, was able to escape the fact that the COVID fraud took place during his first tenure. So when they did the staged rig election, that's why I say it was a staged rig election, because when they rig elections, they don't get caught. With the Biden-Trump election, if you look at it, they made it obvious that this is what they did because they wanted to sell the image that Trump was a maverick. They didn't want him in there. He's for you. And they tried to stop him. We're going to see how much he's for us, especially for the Muslims, as we move on further. But that was the narrative, was that Donald Trump is for us. So look what they did. They rigged the election. When Trump was in, he loved his stimulus checks so much that he wanted to put his signature on them when you received them, saying you got them from me. All those stimulus checks that they mailed out, particularly the last ones where they were giving people $5,000 and $6,000. I know for a fact I got $4,500 at the time because of the children that I had. And there was a friend of my wife's was there at the time, and she was celebrating this. And I told her, do you don't understand what's about to happen? They just killed the value of the dollar. Totally. You are going to see inflation like you haven't seen in your lifetime. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But it happened when Biden was in there because of the staged rig election. They gave all the blame to Biden, even though those checks were put in under Trump. All the fraud, the billions of dollars that was stolen by his buddies who were receiving these checks, fake businesses that were getting created just for the purpose of receiving this money. It was massive robbery of the American people in the form of the inflation tax. Now everything, I remember before COVID, used to be able to buy a pack of sirloins for $8.50, and I could feed my family twice on that. Now those same sirloins are $25. It never came back to normal after the COVID scam. And we'll do a talk on that after Ramadan, inshallah, about all the nuances of that and why it was created. So again, you had this, the economy, he was supposed to be good for that. Look what happened. The border issue, obviously, as we're talking about, he's done absolutely nothing about that either. In fact, the deportation numbers under Biden were almost double what I saw last. I may be wrong, but it was way, way up there to the point that they stopped even publishing the data. They said it was too expensive, that it cost too much money for them to do this. Like it costs money to produce numbers, but that was what they were saying. But the key to this Trump administration and his last term is illusion. They make you think he's actually doing something, when in reality, he's doing absolutely nothing. The numbers don't back up the rhetoric. He will stand on the camera and he'll do his shtick. The media will come out there, oh my God, he's deporting grandmothers, he's deporting infants, all this type of lies. But then you look at the raw numbers, they don't add up. He's absolutely doing nothing. But the sheep out here, these MAGA retards who buy into everything he's saying, will believe it 100%. They're even showing clips of Border Patrol apprehending guys from 2021 and saying, look what he's doing now. It's like all, again, source, what's the word I'm looking for here? Mirrors, basically, all illusion. But what is he giving us? We know he ain't giving us border security. We know so far you're still paying the same rent. Granted, he's only been in there a month, but still time will tell. But I guarantee when I have a talk in a year, it'll be the same thing. But we are seeing cuts to Medicaid. This is being proposed now. And other benefit programs which help struggling Americans. We're never seeing any discussion about repeals on massive tax cuts to the top 1%. You don't ever even have that conversation. In fact, when he was in before, the tax cuts for them is still active. But the tax cuts for us, the normal working people, expired. Funny how that works, isn't it? Those guys, unlimited, indefinitely. Us, the ones who really need all of our money, we're not asking for free handouts here, but our money are now being subject to negotiation. You know, the corporations and those guys, no. And these MAGA morons, they would die for this man. They're just as sick as the people on the left. And it's why I said back then, stay away from it. It's not our fight. None of this has anything to do with us. They've got an agenda. It's already planned. It's already been worked out. There's nothing we're going to do by voting. If voting mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. Trust me. When you study these guys in history, if they really feared voting, they wouldn't let you do it. It's an illusion to make you feel like you have a say, like you're involved. But these people will blindly follow this man to the death. So they voted for closed borders. They voted for the economy, and they're getting Israel. They're getting tax cuts for the wealthy. Like I said, stay at home. It did not matter. He did something else, which is telltale as well this week. He signed an emergency order stating what? Unlimited production for the lumber industry to basically free up our natural forests, natural habitats, wildlife, the beautiful scenery of this nation, just be chopped down. Why? He said this is a big win. So he wants to build more houses by making lumber cheaper. He claims the home price, that's not going to affect our rent. He claims he's going to put more supply out there. This is then in turn going to drop. Well, this right here is him telling you, as he's sitting there doing his Masonic signs, he's telling you, we're bringing in more people. We don't intend to remove the ones that are here. You're not getting the borders that you voted for. You're not. You're getting more unlimited immigration. And that goes on to this, the new gold green card, $5 million he wants to charge for these. And this, again, is part of the plan. Because now what's going to happen, who can afford $5 million? I know I don't have $5 million laying around underneath my coffee table. This is going to be Russian billionaires, Chinese billionaires, Indian billionaires, and GCC country billionaires are going to be investing in America, opening up business. You think they're going to hire Americans? If you've ever seen a Chinese-owned dual venture in this country, I think you would know the answer to that. So again, they're going to, these H-1Bs we talked about before, the floodgates will continue to open, but legally this time opposed to illegally. This will benefit the Americans, and not the slightest. Then there's the big thing of Trump this week, and I hope you guys maybe have had the displeasure of seeing the video that he endorsed. It was an AI-made video. This was depicting Gaza. The video starts off with the Palestinian girls in the rubble, and then there's a tunnel. And as they go through the tunnel and they come out, the light of the new world is open to them. So much demonic symbolism, by the way, in this video. Money was flowing around in the air. A gold statue of Trump. Can't even get more appropriate, can you? The idolatry, all the everything that goes against our religion. It's making a mockery. Basically, there, of course, is the AI-generated video. Watching this was so borderline disturbing, to say the least. In the video, you see these depictions of dancing, Netanyahu and Trump there enjoying. There's the worship of the wealth. The money's just flowing everywhere. Elon is there as well. And of course, one of the key features of this video was in the end, there is transgendered belly dancers dancing on the beach. You can't make this stuff up. On the ashes of the dead, we will build this gluttonous paradise. And of course, the people are outraged. Our brothers and sisters over there have already suffered enough. And now you've got this man mocking them. Even with the bearded transsexuals standing on the beach in belly dance attire. It's all there. The worship of money, as I mentioned, the gold statues of Trump, Netanyahu, Elon Musk. Just terrible, terrible. This came out of this White House. Unbelievable. And as you can see it there, it does it justice. Just absolutely disgusting. And this was the plan all along. They had to get rid of those people. Took time, wasn't as quickly as they wanted, but at the end of the day, they think they finally got it now. And this is the other side, brothers and sisters. It really is. All these apologists have been championing him as a martyr with the fake assassination attempt we saw last summer. He's a champion of free speech and all these other things. And, this is what's going on. And what else did they do? Well, one final thing here is Andrew Tate was back in the news, my favorite Muslim, if you will. Sarcasm, obviously. He arrived in Florida. And now he don't even refer to himself in his tweets anymore as a Muslim. He's already used that grift. He's already led, unfortunately, so many young brothers astray. Inshallah, they will come back. Now he's turning completely to the conservative movement, latching on to Trump, latching on to Christianity and Americana. So now Andrew Tate is, again, he's a champion of free speech. The whole narrative that the Matrix just wanted to get him. They banned him. They couldn't stop him. His message was so powerful. And now here he is back in the United States again. And you're seeing members of the Trump administration and all these phony social media apologizers calling him a champion. He's a hero. He's somebody that basically your kids should look up to. And anyone who hasn't seen my Tate video, you can see the quotes and all the details on his recent life in that video. And you can see what kind of a fantastic, role model he is. But now, again, this is what they do with agents. They just move them around from agenda to agenda. His agenda 2 years ago was to degenerate the Muslim youth, line his pockets with Muslim money. Mission accomplished. He got figured out there. He's now moved back here. He always kind of threw the right-wing stuff in there, but now he's going, fully at MAGA, so to speak. So that's to kind of close up the Trump news there. Now we're going to move on to something that relates, again, to the part I talked about with the quote about the Muslim catalyst. This also ties in to the previous weeks when I was talking about different people being agents and whatnot. And there was a video that went viral on Wednesday. It was a gentleman, one of these controlled brothers, if you will, who goes by the name of Jake Brancatella. And he was speaking at an event here in the United States, and he referred to Christians as the worst of creatures. Now, if you've ever seen this man, I think he definitely fits that description. Obviously, if you see him, I mean, as a proud man, I have no respect for someone who speaks like this, for someone who is obese. As a man, unless you have health problems, there's no excuse for you being obese. Get out there, work, be a man, exercise, work out, be a good role model to your children. But he's a very hideous man in appearance and attitude and spirit. And by saying things like this, of course, what is he accomplishing? He's accomplishing a lot of what they want, obviously. He gets the people over here to hate him, and he also takes the Muslims and makes them, again, creating that clash that we talked about, that catalyst for social unrest. Because I hate to break it to him and people who follow him, but if you actually read the Quran, you can see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Christians. Christians are not presented in the same level of the polytheists and the disbelievers and the atheists. Christians are 2/3 of the way. We are close to reaching them. They've accepted the previous 2 revelations. We have one more step to get them to jump. They fell on misguidance. They accepted Prophet Isa. They just got their leaders, their church fathers, all to lead them astray to the Trinity doctrine, to the doctrine that Jesus is one of 3 gods. It's all one being. They call it the hypostasis or the hypostatic union. Allah talks about the Trinity in the Quran. Allah speaks favorably about the Christians. The Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, invited the Christians to come. He accommodated them. He treated them with respect. And he intellectually debated with them with kind words. These are the manners that we should be displaying, not what you see in the video. And of course, that video, as I mentioned, it went viral. It was everywhere. All the major Christian apologists posted that video, giving it more views. Look, this is what we're bringing in the country. These Muslims are evil. They look at you as vile creatures. They want to kill you. Now you created a bunch of hate that was already there. Now it's getting even worse because now they see a Muslim with the beard, in the attire and the dress, saying these things. When you look at this guy's background, he discouraged the boycotts. The video I talked about with Sister Layla before we went live, I had all my shorts, had over 500, but the one I talked about with the boycotts only had 40. Because again, they don't want us thinking about these type of things. They don't want us focusing on our power and understanding our power and how much our money can make a difference in this world when we unify. They don't want that message getting out. That's why that video was the only one that had 40 views in comparison to 400 to 500. They don't want the message. This gentleman, Jake, has also promoted this, discouraging the boycotts, criticizing people promoting it, glorifying the leaders, all the things that we talked about last week. So I wanted to cover him just briefly here, just to let you know again what is going on, what they're still doing, and they're going to continue to do. And he's just another Muslim. You should turn it off. You're not going to get anything positive from these type of people. They're here to lead you astray, especially new Muslims. It's not how we behave and act. And then finally, Ramadan. It's a beautiful month. Sister Layla was talking in her, before we went live here, how much she loves Ramadan. I mean, I really look forward to this every year. I call Ramadan, the great reset. It's where you can really reset all the bad habits in your life. They say psychologically it takes only 17 days to develop a habit, good or bad, and we get 30. We get one chance for the next year to make this right. I'll give an example. I'm not the type of person that's going to sit here and tell you how perfect I am. I'm not. I'm anything but. I always had a problem with making my 5 prayers. I've struggled with this all my life. Ramadan, each year after, I get better and better at perfecting this mistake, this flaw in my character. My main prayer is Fajr. And I know so many new Muslims and so many Muslims existing. We struggle sometimes getting up when we have to work, but when the alarm goes off to go to work, we have no problem getting up. But when the adhan goes off to go pray, we all of a sudden want to lay in the bed. We don't have the energy and the motivation. But Ramadan really helps me in getting that salah perfected again, getting those 5 in every single day on time. And it's really a good opportunity to be able to do that. It's also an opportunity to remove bad foods from your diet. If you're eating too much junk food, now you have this window here, this golden opportunity to refrain during the day and to not have that, which will make you, and I've noticed myself, when I fast, I don't crave junk. I crave healthy foods like dates and apples and fruits and vegetables and fresh meat and things like that. I'm not craving French fries and fried foods. So if you have a problem with those addictions, this is a great opportunity to build that perfect, habit. Also, we are made to follow the Muslim calendar biologically. Allah designed us to wake up right before sunrise at the Fajr time and to go to sleep in the evening. This is our biological clock. There's been numerous studies, particularly in men, of top bodybuilders who got their championships. They all admitted they trained during this period of time. This period of time raises testosterone in men. It also has been linked to sharper memory, better concentration. This is how we're meant to live, not the Western schedule of working the 8 to 5 job. We are made to wake up at Fajr time and sleep after Isha. Good opportunity again to do that. And then the final thing is, please don't fall into the traps of the modern world. I converted to Islam in 2010 at the end. In 2011 was my first Ramadan. It was beginning in September, in those days, fully in, I went to Saudi Arabia during my first Ramadan. So I got to experience the desert heat and all the traps of that. And when I got there, I was immediately sucked into the behaviors that I saw people who were born Muslim doing. And one of the common things was they would all stay awake till 4 or 5 in the morning. And then they would sleep until 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And, they would basically be fasting for 2 hours. And I was shocked by this. I was like, what's going on? And I got kind of sucked in. I started adapting to this. And what I noticed that was in the evening, people were eating like pigs. They were consuming massive amounts of food. They were eating way more in the night than they ever had during the rest of the year. Excuse me. So all these bad habits that you're supposed to be getting rid of were being switched to the night where our body doesn't metabolize as effectively, and then doubled. You were seeing the coffee, the tea, the Pepsis, the cakes, the fried foods. It was just nonstop binge eating from about 6:30 when the prayer time was for Maghrib there, all the way until the Fajr in the early morning. I mean, it was a nonstop gore fest. The supermarkets, the television channels were all marketing food, food, food. It became a holiday of worshiping eating. And coming from a Christian background, seeing what they had done to Christmas, how commercialized, I saw it early on. I was like, oh my God, it's happening here too. It's like they're taking something's intent over here and then completely inverting it to the dark side, to where you're having this nonstop gluttony, which is anti-Islam. And this was a real eye-opening experience for me, to say the least. And living that lifestyle that first year, I mean, I felt sick. I mean, literally, I felt sick. My body didn't feel right. The next year after that, I was prepared for the normal way. And it was an amazing difference. The sharpness, my mental clarity, my spirituality, everything started to get, better. So watch yourselves, please. If you see family members doing this, kindly advise them. There's so much material out there. We can see all the heart attacks and the strokes and all these things that go up, during Ramadan because of this binge eating. This is not how it was intended to be. And this is how society is steering us. The shaitan's always going to find you on the right path, as I talked about a month ago, and just try to deviate you in any way he can. And you've been fasting all day. You're hungry. The point is develop willpower and self-control over your desires. And now once the dawn strikes, it becomes unleash the desires. And no benefits are happening. So please take care of yourself. Don't fall trapped to this. Have a blessed Ramadan. We will take questions now.